Now, the BBC has learned that Keir Starmer is considering making a significant increase in UK defence spending. The Prime Minister is looking at meeting an existing spending target earlier than planned at a potential cost of billions of pounds. It's thought the Prime Minister is considering meeting the 3% ambition potentially by the end of this Parliament. Well, let's speak live on the programme to the Labour peer, Lord West of Spithead, former Commander-in-Chief of the Royal Navy. And thank you so much for being here with us. No secret that you are among those pushing for greater military spending, but where and what? Just explain.
Well, I think, first of all, I'd say that the world is more dangerous now than any stage in my 60 years on the active list in the Navy. You could argue that in the Cold War at times it was more dangerous, but the world is very much more uncertain. And it's quite clear that we're in a world now where might is right. And talking softly and walking with a big stick is the way of doing things. The trouble is, we used to be able to do that very well in this country, but now, in rather than a big stick, we've got a matchstick because there have been successive cuts to our military over certainly the last 15 years, but actually longer than that. Our military now is in a parlous state.
So where should extra money, if there was to be extra money, go to?
Well, I think to identify exactly the position is rather difficult. All I'd say is there is a shortfall that's been identified by the MOD and by the senior echelon there of about 27 billion. That is really just to get the military up to the status that it should have been at the end of the SDR. That doesn't allow for all the new developments, new drones, new ways of fighting, all of these sorts of things. And those are areas where the money will have to be spent. But in the short term, we need money spent on training, on recruiting, on spares, on the logistics and the maintenance facilities. If you look at the Navy, for example, we've only had one of our very expensive and highly capable nuclear attack submarines operational now for almost a year. The rest of them haven't been because there haven't been the facilities to repair them. There haven't been the spares, there haven't been the people to do it.
Yes.
But this is a dreadful, and so it's those sort of areas we need to spend on immediately. And then we need to have the production of the defence investment plan, which we were promised after the SDR, which should say, right, you need to put money in this area, this area, and this area.
Two quick questions, because the government would point to the fact that with the fifth highest military spender globally, it is the obvious question, if you're going to put more money into defence, where is that coming from?
Well, I think that is a real difficult problem, and that is why, although there's been a lot of good talk about increasing defence, they've always looked at it happening sort of 5 years, 6 years hence. That is no good, because people who end up fighting you don't wait until you're ready to fight. They start straight away, and then, we could be in a war within a month or something, and our military is not ready for that. And I'm afraid the Treasury have been very anti-spending the money on defence, notwithstanding what the government have said about defence being the most important thing for our nation, looking after our people and our country. And that is still going to be a problem, because the only way...
You still haven't said, though, where it's coming from. Let me ask you a final question, though, because it's important.
If I could tell you where it's coming, the only place to get it from are taxation or cutting money from other areas like welfare or borrowing. And I suppose one could possibly get some from the private sector. But those are the sort of areas, and the Treasury have not been very keen to do any of those things. And we really have to do it now. Okay. And I'm glad that Starmer has made it so clear.
A really brief final thought, though. If you were being blunt and honest, isn't the most effective response economically actually to take a much tougher line with Donald Trump when he deals with Vladimir Putin? Because as long as this war in Ukraine goes on, the cost implications are vast. And if there was to be an unfortunate end to that war where Putin has gained, that is just stacking up the problems militarily in the future. So isn't the cleanest way to spend less or spend more efficiently be tougher with Russia?
Well, I think we're being quite tough with Russia. I mean,
well, the Americans are not.
Well, the Americans are certainly not as tough as one would like them to be, and that is a difficult area. It is extremely difficult for us to tell Trump where he's got to spend his money and what he's got to do. I think NATO now, the European NATO, clearly understand they've got to spend money on defence. There have been huge rises in countries like Poland and the Baltic states, for example. I think we've been a bit slow in catching up. We used to be the second biggest spender in NATO. We're now down to about 12th or something as a percentage of GDP. And we've got to pull our finger out and get going on it, because it is a very dangerous world. We can't afford to let Putin win, but there are other dangers in the world other than Putin. And as I've said, it's now in a world where might is right. And when might is right, you need some might. And we've rather lost the ability to have that.
Lord West, we have to leave it there, but thanks for taking time to speak to us. Thank you.